Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here to finish the video of top 10 worst moments of 2023. And this part is going to be a little extensive because I have a great memory, and so I'm very detailed with what I'm going to talk about with the number one worst moment of 2023, which was, of course, not getting to go on vacation in early July due to anxiety and then also primarily the Alpha Vet Clinic of Beaver Creek. So the way that this all started was in the spring, because there were so many different things that I thought was going on, and obviously the blood vessels bursting. What would then happen after that was I would have cold spots, and I would have spots that you heard about the one in part one where it was numb that one night, which was terrifying, and that kind of thing really was like like it could be a cause of anxiety for anyone. And, just thinking about what could it be, all these different things. And so, I thought maybe it's a circulation issue. So I was drinking, hot water, and I was doing all this stuff, to do with that. And, I was just obsessing over the problem. And then after I got that medication, I assumed that everything would just go back to normal, because, why wouldn't it? If you have high blood pressure and it's quote unquote uncontrolled and you take medication, you should go back to normal pretty easily. Well, it wasn't like that. The month of May might have been the second worst month of the year, because I spent every day waiting to get back to normal. The first week, I had terrible symptoms still. And then I would message her, and she'd say, you just have to wait for the medication to work. And then after that, I would have certain days where it would get so bad that I knew, later on in the day, I would have, an attack. And what I mean by an attack is, this rush of blood in or out of my head that was really intense. And there were other times too where I don't know if I should talk about this yet, because it will be a part of the best moments of the year. But there was one of the psychics that I talked to last year. She was able to determine that I had a spiritual attachment, which means a possession type thing. Not like a possession, but where something is inside of you, and it's what they call a parasite. It's not like a real parasite; it's a spiritual parasite. And so there was one time in May where I purchased a session where it would cleanse bad entities and all that type of stuff. And in the middle of doing that session, I had an extreme attack. And it was terrifying. It was very scary. It was like other attacks that I had had in April and stuff before I even went to the doctor. And, that was like a big red flag, because why did it so happen? Why did it just happen to happen at that time, in the middle of doing that cleansing ritual? I was doing deep breathing. So there shouldn't have been any sort of attack. I was perfectly but that's what happened. It was a very scary moment. And the psychic actually felt bad, so she actually didn't even charge me for the session, because she could tell that I had a problem going on. And she's a really good psychic too. Kind of. She's gotten a lot busier now, and she charges more now, and so, probably because she's good, so that's what she should do. But yeah, that happened. And then one thing that I had to do is I had to adjust my diet, because there were days where I would be like, oh, they say online eating fish is really good for blood pressure. So I would eat like canned sardines as a snack, like in the afternoon. In particular, remember the day when I reviewed Peter Pan and Wendy? That's the day that I remember, where I ate sardines and I had banana maybe, and it did the opposite. It made me it made me have terrible symptoms of like high blood pressure supposedly. And of course the blood pressure monitor, I would check my blood pressure constantly all day long. I would take that thing out and it was broken, so I had to spend like 30 minutes trying to get a reading. There was one day, there were actually multiple mornings where I would spend an entire hour trying to get a reading and I wouldn't get anything. And I would just be like scared shitless that day that like it wasn't too high or something. And it was so unpredictable too, because there would be like days or a week where I would feel like I was getting better. And another thing I had to do is I had to drink so much water. I drank like 10 to 20 bottles of water a day. I'd be running to the bathroom to go to the bathroom, and then I would go run to the bathroom seconds later to refill a water bottle with shitty tap water that tasted terrible, because I had to drink water because I thought that's going to help me in the blood pressure. And I was constantly on my feet because I was worried about like not exercising, which just made it worse because I was moving constantly, and I was so exhausted at the end of every day. And of course, all that the doctor would say was, you have to wait for the medication to work. And it was terrible. And so I had to adjust my diet. So I stopped eating fast food completely in the month of May, I believe. Yeah, I think so. And so I would eat, like, I told you guys in one video, I had this really gross, I'll never forget it, this frozen meal. I would have, like, frozen food, like, 3 to 4 times a week. And it would just be, like, the least amount of sodium in whatever meal that I would pick out. And they were just so gross, so tasteless and bland. And, like, I couldn't have the usual dessert that I liked having either. So I started getting these special desserts. Like, I got, one time I got this Carb Smart ice cream that actually, it was very good at the time. And then months later, after switching back to normal desserts, I was like, ooh, I can't believe I like that. It had this kind of, like, cocoa taste. But it kind of had like a marshmallowy taste to it too. And I had that because, it was like supposedly very low in sodium and everything, so it would be okay for your blood pressure. And I would have this issue too where if I would rest for a long period of time, I would feel the symptoms worse. And they would just get worse and worse and worse. There were some evenings where I'd just be sitting on the couch all evening. And then all of a sudden I'd just be like, oh shit, I'm starting to have these like attacks or these feelings where like I'm having, it's a weird thing to describe. I can't even describe it anymore. But I would have to get up and exercise. And once I like feverishly walked around for like 30 minutes, I would feel better. And so that's what I mean, where I like felt like I had to constantly exercise. It was so terrible. And this is also why I think in part it was due to the losartan, because some of these symptoms, they don't really feel like they were to do with anxiety or high blood pressure. They feel like they were to do with taking losartan, because I didn't have some of these symptoms before I was taking that drug. And so like I think that as well. And another dessert that I had, which I would recommend, these cookies. I can't remember what brand. In fact, I'll look up right now. They were these keto cookies that I got at the store because I was trying to like eat keto. keto food because, like, they said online that if you went keto that you could, control your blood pressure and you could be really healthy. And so I was torturing myself that way too. I'm trying to find the brand here. It's taking forever. Keto Cookies Brands, come on. They have all these recipes. It all looks like shit. Oh, here we go. It's Voortman. Voortman Bakery. They had these chocolate cookies with chocolate chips. So they're chocolate. They were really, really delicious. But the problem was that they were 100 calories a cookie. And they're these small little cookies too. But, like, it was all that I would eat for dessert some days because I was so scared of, like, what I was eating increasing the blood pressure. And that's what I mean, where it just felt so wrong, this whole thing of, like, waiting for medication to work for, like, an entire month and then having to do all this stuff. Like, it's abnormal. It's like... You should get a medication and then it should help you. You shouldn't have to have like a waiting period where like you have to like torture yourself in order to wait for the medication to finally work. Like that's just stupid. So there would be other days too that were really frustrating. In particular, days where like I would exercise all day and I would drink tons of water. And still at the end of the day, I would feel terrible. These headaches and things. I had this particular kind of headache where it kind of felt like I had headphones on in my head. Which I still get if I get higher blood pressure sometimes from being sick. I can get that once in a while. But, that happened a lot with in May. And I had this one day that was really frustrating where we went out for hours to go to this estate sale where I got tons of great stuff, including, and I know that this might be bad to say, but what happened was, it was actually really, really cool. We should really do videos about buying stuff from different sales and things, because we've seen and found some really interesting stuff. There was this one, this really cool basement area, and it was a really cool basement, like definitely like a basement that I would want to have. And it had a nice carpet and everything, and I got tons of stuff from there for Safi to sell. And that's another reason, by the way, that I wanted that vase to be taken down, is because I'm telling you guys, I don't want to brag here, about 65% of the stuff that I find, like, sells for Safi. Like, a lot of the stuff that I find is the stuff that she actually sells, because I am psychic as well. And so, like, I am able to find really cool stuff. And one of the things that I found was they had all this alcohol, and they had an unopened bottle of gold tequila, and the guy gave it to me for free because you're not allowed to sell alcohol in any way unless you have a liquor license. So we got all this stuff plus that alcohol for free. And actually, unfortunately, you know what I did with the alcohol? Because I was so scared to drink alcohol, I poured the entire bottle out and wasted it. So, yeah, I just didn't want to have, like, the temptation to, like, want to be like, oh, this one night I'll have, like, a shot or something and then have it be, like, the end of me or something. But then after that whole sale happened, I just felt terrible the rest of the day. And then the next day, I just felt even worse. And I was like, why am I feeling like this? I'm getting all this exercise. I'm eating to the point of where it's like I'm practically like a prisoner of war or something. Like I'm being exaggerative there. The way that I ate was just so minimal and so restrictive. Instead of eating my normal breakfast, I went to eggs. and I just had eggs with salt and pepper. That's how basic, bare bones it was. And it was like nothing helped. Like, even though they say online that, like, exercise helps blood pressure and all these foods like bananas and things, like, none of it helped at all. And so, that probably did increase anxiety, that, like, none of this stuff that they said would help was helping at all. And then you had a clueless doctor who, they have this stupid thing now where you can message a doctor. And it's stupid because, like, sometimes she'll message, and then a lot of the time she'll just ignore them. And then some other time she'll have other people respond for her. And so that's really shitty, that whole messaging doctor thing that you can do now, because it's just not efficient. Like, I think that the best thing to do is just call them, because then they can't ignore you, Like, that's what I do now. If I have a problem, I call them. Like Better Call Saul, it's like better call the clueless doctors. Because, yeah. So then in June, like, things got even worse, and I told you guys how for, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks, I just think 3 weeks, I was lying down on the couch all day long. That's all that I was doing, because I felt so sick. I did feel good, because the weird thing, too, was that my blood pressure went down. And then I went and I would keep checking all day long my blood pressure, and it was perfect. And sometimes it was actually lower than it needed to be. Like, it would be like 90 over 60 something. Like, it would be really, really low. And I was so confused as to why I was still feeling so terrible, even though my blood pressure was good, and also I was like not like I didn't understand. And the fact that I just felt worse and worse, and feeling these head pains and these weird feelings all over, and just a very strange, like, sequence of events. And so there are kind of like 2 or 3 angles here to the situation of what happened. And, the psychic who did the cleansing ritual, she told me that I was going through a spiritual awakening. And when you go through a spiritual awakening, you are sick. You get really, really sick. And it is possible. So I kept that in mind. But still, it didn't help, because I still felt like shit. And I would eat the same things every day. I'd have the same lunch every day. I'm telling you guys, I was like so restrictive. I'd be like, okay, today for lunch I'm having peanut butter and jelly with a tiny handful of Lay's chips and apple that's fresh and cut up. That's all I would have, because I was so, like, frightened about what would happen if I ate anything. And so after those 2 or 3 times with emergency care, I was really, really irritated that, like, I was still on this drug. And I felt like the drug was the problem. So I got off of it. And after that, there were a couple of weeks where I felt like I was detoxing from the drug. But I still had all these terrible feelings. And, like, I'd be in the living room all day. I couldn't go into my room because I didn't want to have, like, an attack or pass out or something. And I didn't want to have any doors closed or something like that. And I was just really in a terrible position. I felt like I was so sick that, like, I could never get back to normal. And so then I stopped making videos too. And it was shitty too, because in April, I had started to plan this trip. And I felt like after I'm done being sick, I can't wait to go on this trip and have a fun vacation and enjoy myself. And the trip was such a great trip that we planned. we were going to go on a train to Texas, and I've never been on a train before, so that would have been really cool. And then in Texas, we were going to do tons of stuff, go to the convention, go on the Riverwalk, because our hotel was right on the Riverwalk. So it was like a perfect vacation. It was like the perfect vacation that you could ever plan. And I was really excited that after being so sick that I'd be able to do that. Well, after those emergency visits happened, another reason why I was irritated was because I really didn't want this doctor's incompetence to interfere with my vacation plans. So I thought that getting off the medication would make me get better in 2 seconds. It didn't work out that way. It was very depressing. Every day just felt like more of the same torture. It did not really feel like, with a lot of sicknesses, you feel each day you're getting better, you're getting better, you're getting better. This was a sickness where you didn't feel like that at all. Every day just felt like the same thing over and over again. It was so tiresome and so awful. And then eventually it got to the point where I was getting really worried that I wouldn't be able to go on this trip because of how sick I was. And because people were not taking my sickness seriously. And they were pretending like there was nothing wrong with me, because physically there wasn't anything wrong with me. I had perfect blood pressure. I had 2 blood labs taken. Both of them were perfect. In fact, the doctors, the dipshit doctor, she was so shocked that my blood labs were perfect. She was under the assumption that I had diabetes or something, and that's the reason why I was so sick. But no, my labs were perfect. They were amazing, like I was really, really healthy. And which I will say that I did lose a lot of weight. I went down from 280 pounds all the way to 250. So I did lose a lot of weight, which was good. And so I went back to the doctor to address this anxiety, because multiple people at these emergency places told me that it sounded like anxiety. And I felt like there was something to that, because the nerve, I think the vagus nerve, is that what it's called? It was really, really sore, especially after these attacks that I would have, like the ones that I went to the emergency room for. It was really, really sore. And it led me to believe that, why isn't that dipshit doctor diagnosing this as anxiety or doing anything to address that? Because she had said multiple times in May and April, oh, that kind of sounds like anxiety. It kind of sounds like anxiety. Is it anxiety? I don't know. And, I went to her, and she tried to put me on Prozac, and I threw it in the trash. And I went back and I got Zoloft. And I was doing something, too, where I was reading health tarot readings daily, multiple times a day. It was actually scary accurate, because both times that I went to the emergency room, the card that I saw right before I went, one of them said that you will be visiting the hospital. Both of those times, it was very scary the way that it was able to predict that a lot of the times. And then when I got the Prozac and the Zoloft, both times on this tarot reading, it would say that you are ill because you are abusing drugs, or you are using drugs that you shouldn't be using, or alcohol or something. And so that was how I knew I should not be taking these. And another thing that happened was in late June, I was really, really intent on still going on this trip, even though I felt terribly. And there was also the anxiety of coming up of if I don't go, then I'm going to be looked at as bad, because apparently there's nothing wrong with me, even though I'm suffering all day long and I can't do anything, but apparently there's nothing wrong with me. And so, and also the fact that if I stayed, that I would be pressured into helping to do stupid, like, holiday barbecuing that I didn't want to do. And so that was another pain point. And so I just didn't know what to do to get better in time for this vacation. Well, 3 days before we were supposed to go on this vacation, we got a call from the Alpha Vet Clinic at Beaver Creek, and they said that they couldn't take care of our cat because it wasn't enough for one person to be able to give him a shot. And that just was like the most bullshit excuse I've ever heard. And the woman on the phone was very rude, and she wasn't like understanding or anything. She was very rude and bitchy and just terrible on the phone, and terrible customer service too. And it was really shitty because we had scheduled this boarding a month in advance. You know, we scheduled everything far ahead of time. So they should have addressed this issue weeks ago, and instead they waited until it was 3 days before we were supposed to leave to tell us that, like, no, we can't handle that. So we were not able to find any other vet to get in the cat because the problem was giving him shots because he is diabetic. If he wasn't diabetic, we probably wouldn't have been able to find something. But I kind of felt like maybe this is a good thing because I'm so sick. Because, like, it's almost like, the other side is helping me so that I am able to get better properly. They're making it so that I can't go on this trip because I thought something bad's going to happen on this trip, like something really bad. Like, we had, to tell you guys how bad it was, we had room 13 on the train going to Texas. So that's how I knew that something bad could happen. And I didn't think anything of it when I booked the ticket, though. But but on the other hand, they completely ruined our summer. They were very unprofessional for canceling at the last minute like that. And then they just kind of wrote it off as like, oh, we could find a sitter somewhere. Like at the last minute, 3 days before we were supposed to leave. Like, just really, really shitty and irresponsible. And frankly, really embarrassing that, like, a vet, like, calls you at the last minute before you're about to go on a trip. And they say, oh, sorry, we can't take care of your pet. Like, that's just so, like, why are you even a vet then? Like, why do you even have vet services if you're not going to actually do your job? It's just like these actors who are on Backstage.com, even though they don't even act. You know, like all these fraudsters that I've dealt with. It's like, you're not even an actress. Like, why are you even on an acting website if you can't act? So that was horrible. That whole thing, like, that was really the low point of the year. Because that was supposed to be the reward for being better, for getting better. And we were not able to do it. And another thing, too, the thing that really made it worse was the fact that these people at this convention, they're people who don't go to conventions very often. You know, one of them that I was going to get pictures and autographs with, she hasn't been to a convention since the last time that I saw her in 2019. That's a long time ago. And you think about, when's she going to go to a convention next? 6 years later? 5 years later? Another actor, the last time they were at a convention was 8 years ago. And so these were people where it was like, this was the golden opportunity here. It was the golden moment. And that was another reason why I felt like it was a timeline shift, because it just felt like it was too good, and the fact that it wasn't happening was very unnatural, and it just felt so off, like why this didn't happen and work out. Terrible. So then after that happened, 4th of July came and went, and thankfully I got through that, but like every moment of every day, I was feeling like something bad was going to happen. And so it was that bad. I didn't want to be left alone. And I did a couple weird things too. Like there was this one thing that I did, what they call it online as a safety behavior. So one of the things that I did was that I read online, because I started having these burning sensations in my brain. And I read online that if you have that, you could get these massages, or they would massage the sides of your head and stuff. So I would put my shirt collars over my ears to warm my neck and my head, so that it would help calm down the brain burning. And I started reading up about anxiety, and it was really scary, because it would say like, oh, well, you just have to live with it. You just have to move on. You just have to sit there and act like none of these symptoms actually exist. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I feel like so many things are going on. And of course, anxiety, if you don't know, it's basically your nervous system is being overloaded to the point of where everything is spilling over. And, you have to get it back to normal, and then you have to control it so that it stays normal. And I had a really hard time doing that, because just every day didn't feel any better, even though I was like, I would try to exercise 10 minutes, and I would feel terrible symptoms happen. The longer I exercised, the more I felt like something bad was going to happen. And of course, didn't message the doctor about any of this, because she would have just said, oh, we'll try another medication. And she said something really retarded too. Guys, you won't believe what she said. She said that if lisinopril didn't work, that she would put me back on losartan. Like after all those problems I had with it, because she basically completely didn't believe that any of the problems were due to the losartan, which was bullshit. And things just continued, and so what I started to try to do, and I'm really minimalizing what went on too, because it was terrible. It was really the end of the world every day. But what I tried to do was every day I slowly started to try to go back to my normal routine again. So I would, in the morning, I would have oatmeal and yogurt instead of eggs, and because I was so sick of eggs. Or I would have eggs and I would really spice them up to make them interesting and entertaining to eat. And I would also watch this show that I would watch every morning, and I stopped watching it when I got really, really sick. And doing like little things like that made me feel like I was going back to normal a little tiny bit. So finally what I did was I got the feeling that I should try magnesium. And that's where I will end with that, because the whole point of this video was just to say the number one worst moment was not being able to go on vacation. Because it was planned as a reward, and the fact that it wasn't able to happen was just really like a terrible, terrible thing. And, we'll never forget that, or never forgive that vet. We would highly suggest that you give them a 0 out of 5 or a 1 out of 5 on Google reviews, because they really deserve it. So anyways, that is my top 10 worst moments of 2023. This video wasn't as long as I thought it would be, And I think it's because I don't want to get to the good stuff, where things started to turn around, because that's a whole other thing. Well, I guess I should also mention in this time period, when I started to have these sinus issues, my doctor recommended me get an allergy pill, because she didn't know that I had all this mold in my room. So I got this allergy pill, and it made me so much worse. It wasn't even funny. And it helped my sinuses, but it made me like 1,000 times worse. And it did this thing where it increased the pressure in my eyes to where I could feel like the pressure in my eyes increasing. And there was this one really scary night where I was about to go to sleep, and I could see these like white flashing lights on both sides, like one after the other, and then they went away. And that was just like that one night, and I was like, oh shit, like that is terrifying. So I immediately stopped taking that. But like that was another thing that happened. And so like it really did feel like it could have been anxiety as well as something else. And I did investigate, though, more into the whole spiritual attachment thing. And that is where I will end with that, because next video, the top 10 best moments, I will be talking about getting rid of that attachment through a very fun way. So anyways, please like this video and comment and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. Or if you don't, I really don't care, because I really like doing these types of videos too. I think that it's important to do these types of videos because it makes you know that I'm not just a shill reviewer who says or does certain things so that I can get subscribers. I'm actually a person. And so, yeah, just so that you know, I am a person. And fuck 2023, fuck 2022, and hopefully 2024 doesn't suck as well. So anyways, goodbye everybody, see you soon.